Canadian dollars against the US dollar, as opposed to Australian dollars against the US dollar. I think that's an unchallenged. You can't really challenge that. I think that's a fair assumption. Is it a reasonable assumption to rely on a hedge where you're using another currency as a proxy? I think that is a fairly risky strategy. If you want to have a very tight hedge, it probably hedges out some of the risk. How much, I don't really know because I haven't done the analysis, but I would imagine it's not going to be as watertight as you would expect. And this might, and I'm using this, I'm guessing here, this might explain some of the over-hedging. You would do a lot of analysis to work out whether there was, what the correlation is, and if you can get into quite involved calculations on hedging. For example, banks, and particularly investment banks and funds, hedging funds, would use delta hedging, what they call delta hedging. And that is using a proxy to mimic what is happening in the underlying commodity or financial variable. And they use that by working out what is the effect of a change of a 1 basis point change in the underlying commodity as opposed to a 1 basis point change in the hedging proxy. And they then work out, this is why they call it a delta hedge, what is the difference? It might be a 1-to-1 relationship or a 2-to-1 relationship or a 0.5-to-1 or 1-to-2 relationship, for example. And they would hedge on that basis. I don't know if this makes sense to you, but so this might explain some of the over-hedging, because it might have been a 2-to-1 or a 1.3-to-1 or whatever the over-hedging is. I don't know. You'd have to ask them or have a look at what their analysis actually delivered. This is something that companies entered into in the 80s and 90s. They don't do that very much in the 2000s because this kind of hedging is not that easy to run. It's less common. Normally, companies in the 2000s have taken a much more direct approach, a much more risk-averse approach, and hedge directly where they can. They try to avoid, and this is not a comment on the use of straight options as opposed to forward rate agreements. This is a comment on the more sort of involved, once removed or financial derivative products type hedging, which is out of favor at the moment, when it has been for a little while. Mm-hmm. Sorry, that was a bit of a diatribe.
Yeah, I think. Thanks, Keith. Have you got any more questions going?
No, that's been very good.
All right, then. If that's the case, thank you very much, Keith.
Okay, I hope that's been of some value to you.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.
No problem.
Glenn, can you say
Okay.
Well, then we'll call you.
Yeah, what's your extension, Glenn?
25957.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Gotcha.